Larry King that worked on CNN for years. They let him go, and he's 77 years old. And I don't know if you know a lot about him, but he's obsessed with death. He's wrote different articles and things that come about his life, and he's obsessed a lot. And maybe because he's come close to it many times, he's had a heart attack. He's had quadruple bypass surgery. He had prostate cancer. He's diabetes. He's went through 7 divorces. It's caused an enormous amount of stress in his life, I'm sure, and different things. And to move against aging and death, he now takes 4 hormone pills for human growth each day, 4 of them each day, and he desires to be having his frozen body. He wants his body frozen when he passes, so someday he may live again. New York Times writes, "It's nuts," concedes King, but at least it gives him a shred of hope, because Larry King says other people have no hope. And so that's Larry King, a little crazy, but influential person that was for years on a major news station and things. And you feel a little bit bad for him, a little bit of that craziness, especially if you're a believer in the Lord Jesus. But one of the common ways we describe death is to kick the bucket. Probably a lot of you heard that. So because of that term, we acknowledge that everyone sooner or later is going to kick the bucket. We're going to pass from this life. And we've come up with the idea then of a bucket list. It's all the things I want to do with my life, create memories, do great things, enjoy great things before I'm gone and unable to do these things anymore because of the 100% rate of kicking the bucket. And what we need to know is that God cares about what you fill your bucket with. God cares about how you use your bucket and the things in your bucket and what you do with that life. And so in light of all this, Solomon pours out some wisdom for us to know how to live and to know that God cares about what we put in our bucket. And so we're going to look at Ecclesiastes chapter 9 today, verse 1 through 10, that is going to touch a lot on kicking the bucket. It's going to touch a lot on death and on that experience and things and how we should live because of that. So verse 1, Solomon begins to pour out this wisdom. He says, "This too I carefully explored. Even though the actions of godly and wise people are in God's hands, no one knows whether God will show them favor. The same destiny ultimately awaits everyone, whether righteous or wicked, good or bad, ceremonially clean or unclean, religious or irreligious. Good people receive the same treatment as sinners. And people who make promises to God are treated like people who don't." So basically the saying right here, the same destiny ultimately awaits everyone. And what's that destiny? Death. Thank you. And the cause or the curse of sin, since it's entered the world, since each of us was born into sin, so everyone dies. Because when sin entered the world is when the point in which humanity, again, began to experience this thing that we call death. And so the guy who faithfully drives to church each week and the guy who steals his car and takes it for a drunken joyride both still die. And the lady who tithes faithfully every week and gives to the Lord and gives extra amount to the poor is the same as the lady that lies to get that same gal fired. Both still die. And the college student who works hard in school and gets good grades and never cheats, and the college student that never goes to class and comes in a drunk stupor, both of them still die. I think sometimes evangelical pastors and things, we send the message, maybe unpurposely, or that if you just live righteously and live a good life and do good things, then life will certainly be easy for you. And that you won't go through much pain and trouble as others, and the unrighteous and the ungodly, the bad person, will only have trouble in their life. But Solomon here is saying that both good people and bad people both suffer, and that good people and bad people both die. So I don't know if that's a message that it's the message of reality for life on this earth, life on this planet. And so in response to that, Solomon goes on the very next verse, in verse 3, he begins with, "It seems tragic. It seems tragic that everyone under the sun suffers the same fate. And that is why people are not more careful to be good. Instead, they choose their own mad course, for they have no hope, and there is nothing ahead but death anyway." Now, I would say, when he says it seems so tragic, everyone under the sun has the same fate. I think the key words there is under the sun. We can say that together. 1, 2, 3. Under the sun. Okay, that's important to know because Solomon is looking at this with a wisdom that was imputed to him and given to him supernaturally, but he's still looking at it from the wisest person that he can under the sun in the world that we live in, not looking or about a world from above the sun, but under the sun. And if we believed that this body and this life is all there is and there's nothing else, and then bodies are sooner or later going to just return to the dirt, and nothing else from that point on, and we would look and observe what he did, and we would say there's no other word but it to say it's tragic. Why do people that do better in life and are nicer people and kinder and people that just are horrible and terrible, why are they experiencing the same thing? And for so many people here, this life is one suffering after another. You'll see certain families go through one storm after another, and life just looks like it's a cruel joke, and then we die, and that's it. If you understood it that way, it would be tragic. You'd say exactly what Solomon says here. And then he goes on to explain a little bit more. He says, if that's the case, why people are not more careful to be good. You ever listen to all the humanists out there? I've read some, even some atheist books from some different authors of people that are atheists and things. And they all have this kind of common thread of you should be a good citizen of humanity. You should be a good citizen of humanity. You should treat your other human citizens as with dignity and honor your fellow humans and let one another live with a common dignity. And the immediate question that comes to me after hearing that and reading about that is why? Why does humanism say you should treat each other as common citizens and be a good citizen of the state and a good person on this earth and things, but then have no reason why? From Howard Hume and all the other different philosophers, and some of them even says that God is dead or there's no God, all these different things. Why treat people nice? Who says? Why not murder? Why not run over people who are keeping me from getting richer if I wanted to? Why not take the life of a baby that I'm not planning on having or I see as an inconvenience? Why not? Why not live with any sexual moral ethics that I decide that is right for me? Why not take people's money from them? Why not break into their homes? Why not live as if I'm Hitler? And Solomon says this is life under the sun. If you just look at it from this way, it's tragic. It's why people are not more careful to be good. And he goes on to say that they choose their own mad course, for they have no hope. In my undergraduate work, I attended California Baptist University for a year, and I attended a couple months of classes with a Dr. Eastman that was coming over to our university from San Diego State. And at one point, Dr. Eastman was fourth in the nation in evolutionary thought. And he married, I don't know how it got mixed in with the gal he married, but he married a Christian gal. And he used to chide her and kind of make fun of her for her naiveness in being a Christian. And he was so brilliant and so high up in evolutionary thought that he said, though, that he eventually came to know Christ, and he's teaching this class. And he said it wasn't the Bible, it wasn't anything like that brought him to Christ. It was actually his deeper studies into the theory of evolution. Because initially, he said he kept on studying these things, and he began to see what a bankrupt theory it was. And he began, because of that, to begin to listen to some conversations with his wife and begin to do some reading after that into the Bible. And so he told us in his class, he taught us that we're taught to think that when evolutionary thought came to be in that century, it was thought that it became just because of the facts and the evidence that were discovered. But he says that's not the truth. That's not the fact. There was already a movement in that day looking for an alternative than trusting and believing in God. It explains why Darwin himself said, I'm taken back by how far people took my theories. I threw out some hypotheses, and they spread like wildfire. The world and the culture at that time was ready to receive an alternative to believing in God, to being accountable in God, to believing that there is justice, to believe that there is a reckoning, to believe that our actions matter, that there are consequences, that there is a purpose for life, that everything is not just a cosmic accident. So do as you please. The reason I chose to share evolution as a first example for the madness that mankind pursues is because it goes to the heart of the problem. Once you recreate a beginning without a creator, a merciful and righteous God, you open the doorway for all kinds of other madness because you've taken the real source of hope, the real source of goodness, accountability and justice out of the way. And so from that point on, mankind can explain and come up with explanations for all the other madness that they want to believe in and pursue. That's why the beginning is so important. That's why there's such a battle over the beginning. But what I see in the scripture here that I grabbed onto for our first point and how to live with our bucket list and what to fill it is, there's this one truth that rose out of these verses I see is when there is no hope, people will follow any madness. Country song used to say, you better stand for something or you'll fall for anything. And that is completely true. When there is no hope, when there is not a reason for living, and when there's not a reason for going on, then you will grasp at anything. And you see the culture today grasping for anything. There's all kinds of craziness that people are running and pursuing and spending their lives on. There's no hope beyond this world with a good God that can save us, that cares about us, that is compassionate. Then not only, I would say, to eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die, but I'd say cast off all restraint and do whatever you darn well please. That's what that completely leads to. Or just do what you see the culture doing today. You feel a great sense of hope. We're coming up on a next presidential election. Does it fill your heart with hope? Or is there a sense of there's some madness going on? How do we get here? What happened? People don't even treat each other cordial. They're supposed to be statesmen. They're supposed to be leaders, not kindergarten kids. Talk about hope for a second. What is hope? Someone says you can live a few days without water, several weeks without food, but no time at all without hope. Many of you know Tiger Woods' story, came from Stanford University. I don't remember if you remember the commercials when he was deciding to go from amateur to pro. And the commercials would come on, and even Casey Martin, his roommate in college at Stanford University, said he was concerned because these commercials would come on, and Tiger Woods hitting the ball, and the phrases across the caption across the screen is, "I am Tiger Woods, ready to take the golf world by storm." And he did. And everybody thought he was going to break every single record out there, that he was just going to demolish everybody. He was going to beat him again and again. He was going to have more green jackets than anybody. He was going to break the king, the bear, all the different Arnold Palmer guys. He was going to just tear everybody up. He's going to shatter every golf record that was going to be out there. And if you that know the story, Tiger Woods had first some things came out that revealed a lot about his character, and then some of the stresses and things like that, maybe led to other health issues, and then back problems and surgeries and things. And so I was reading this article, and it's just, where there's no hope, people will follow madness. And so it says, for nearly a decade, Tiger Woods was the dominant force in pro golf, spending 264 weeks as the world's #1 golfer. But after a rash of injuries and poor performances, Woods experienced a significant drop in his ranking. In December 2015, The Week magazine reported that Woods was struggling to find his identity after his third back surgery. Woods told reporters, "There's really nothing I can look forward to. I am really good at playing video games. That's basically how I pass a lot of my time now." Does anybody ever think that things would come to that? A guy that makes the millions of dollars because he can just take a little ball and just do incredible things with it. And, it's such a sport that has just kind of an idea of being a gentleman, of having hope, having things in order, and down to just kind of where a person reverts to maybe what they were doing in middle school or high school. Like, hey, I guess I'll go back and play video games. Because what does a guy do with he's lost some hope? Just have somebody to walk alongside him and give him that hope. So reading about Christopher Hitchens, he's an atheist that wrote many books, and some of them I read. He asked Christian author Larry Taunton to arrange a series of debates between Hitchens and some other Christian thinkers, and so he went through some debates. I've seen some of them also on video and things, and he was a good debater and things, but he became close to Larry Taunton, this Christian publicist and author, and he even spent time with him in his house, and they traveled around the country as they set up these debates and things. And Hitchens one day, Larry Taunton talks about where Hitchens is reading some of the Bible in chapter 11, where he's reading about Lazarus resurrecting from the dead. And Hitchens kind of chides him a little bit, but not with the normal sarcasm that he normally had. And he says, "Do you believe this, Larry Taunton?" His sarcasm's evident, but it lacks his customary force. And Larry responds, "I do, but you already knew that I did. The question is, do you believe this, Christopher Hitchens?" As if searching for a clever riposte, he hesitated and speaks with unexpected transparency. "I'll admit that it is not without appeal to a dying man." This is Christopher Hitchens, a great atheist, still struggling with his own mortality. Don't you feel for people maybe that don't have a relationship with the Lord? Where do they find their hope? Where do they find their reason for living? Where do they find the reason for life? Where do they find their reasons for the universe is shaped in such a way that it's so organized, with such precision? Solomon moves on, verse 4. "There is hope only for the living. As they say, it's better to be a live dog than a dead lion. The living at least know they will die, but the dead know nothing. They have no further reward, nor are they remembered. Whatever they did in their lifetime, loving, hating, envying, is all long gone. They no longer play a part in anything here on earth." So Solomon, in practical wisdom, says there's hope only for the living. Better to be alive than dead. This is, in its finality, is fulfilled with Christ coming and paying the price for our sin. Solomon didn't see this yet, but under the sun, he only sees under the sun, but really this speaks or foreshadows eternity. In John 11:25, Jesus tells a woman, "I am the resurrection and life. Anyone who believes in me will live even after dying." So he's saying we're alive, even though we might die from this world, there is a life that comes after this one. This is a life that's ongoing. But Solomon, in his understanding, from his perspective, under the sun, says it's better to be a live dog than a dead lion. And this perplexed me at first because dogs are great. I have a dog that just snuggles up to me and loves me, and so I feed him good. I give him treats on the dinner table sometimes, or sneak him extra food, and he just cuddles up to me every night I go to sleep. I find him around my neck or my head in the morning, and just a warm, fuzzy little body. I love my dog. But in the Middle East, dogs are known as just mangy Mongols. If you go to the Middle East today, you'll see some uncared for dogs running around the streets, and they're really there to fend for themselves. There'll be a pack of wild dogs you'll see just walking through the streets, uncared for, untaken care of. Not at all as majestic and strong, as powerful, even at this time, what they would say is a lion. Solomon's saying it's better to be me, it's better to be alive rather than being a billionaire on the Titanic. Because when you're alive, there's hope, there's little life to be lived, there's living, and so it's just better to live. Some friends were hanging out one day, and the conversation grimly turned to the issue of death, and one of the friends asked the others, "What would you like people to say about you at your funeral?" And one friend answered, "I would like people to say he was a great humanitarian. He cared about our community." Another man replied, "I'd like them to say he was a great husband and a father, an example for many to follow." And the third friend said, "I would hope that someone would say, 'Look, he's moving. He's still alive.'" To me, it's so extremely sad how many breathe or have breath in their lungs today, but have not still come fully alive. Just living life, but going through the emotions. They're not drawing and just savoring the moment or the days. They're just putting in their time Another day goes by and they feel like they just were able to live through it rather than really living in it. So point number 2 that I wanted to get it across, I think I hear a Solomon saying in a practical sense, appreciate the gift of life God has given you by living it. Don't be content with breathing as your definition of life. Don't mope through life being swallowed up by your job, constantly complaining how life is too hard or how bad everything is. Don't become more comfortable complaining about a job you hate for 20 years rather than having the courage to do something about it. To say my life is more than my job. Don't allow yourself to become only your job. Do something with your family in the evenings. Do something special. Do something you love on your Saturdays together. Do something you enjoy that makes you feel like you've come fully alive. You know, Monday night, my heart was full. I went to Nathaniel's Campus Life group and enjoyed some of the kids and the speaker there, that Evan, who spoke about his life and gave a testimony before the kids were there and things. And then I left there at about 7:45 because I needed to get over to a middle school for our church soccer game that goes from 8:30 to 10. They clearly weren't thinking of 43-year-olds when they thought of those leagues for soccer and things. But I was getting over there and got warmed up to play the soccer game, a crystal clear night, on Monday night, cold, crisp, and got to play in the soccer game and got a pass over the side, got able to make a move around the defender on that side in a flash, got my leg into it and ran the ball, and it got back right part of the net, high up where the goalie couldn't get to it. Immediately I turned around and began just praising God to myself. Like, God, I sense your pleasure in mine. Ever get that? It's the old chariots of fire and things, when I run, he was a runner. When I run, I sense God's pleasure. And so I was really thinking as I was turning around, walking back to midfield after this goal and this soccer game that we ended up losing and things anyways, but I just walked back to the middle, but I was praising God, though. I said a month ago, I couldn't even envision running. I was sick. But God, you brought me back. And now I'm moved as fast as I feel like I've ever moved. I've got to play like I've always played. I've got to live life. And so I think it'd be a mistake to say that life is just about activities and sporting events. I'm really talking about an attitude. Speaking about an attitude of life, Marvin shared with me, one of our shepherds, about some family. He said he's got back east. It's just disheartening to him because they're close people to him. But he said one member of his family is 73 years old, but they act like they're 93 in attitude. He says it's just sad to him. It's like they act like as if they're almost dead. Listen to my mom talk about some of our seniors here and what they're doing, volunteering time 2 times a week at some of the elementary schools. Some of our seniors are volunteering their time at the elementary schools doing after-school programs for the community. I thought, what a great way to say, I'm still in the game. I'm still fully alive. I'm still here to serve. And we have some other seniors that are doing supervised visits on Saturday morning for court-appointed kids to help bring and keep families together. It's like, what a great way of using your time. What a great thing that you are doing. We have all kinds of people that are volunteering for this harvest party that are coming up. It's just a carnival for kids in the community to come on Halloween night and have a place to go, a safe place to go, a place to enjoy, and a place for our church family to rub shoulders with the community. I think of so many members in our church, and Marvin, Kevin, Quincy, I remember Jim Wright, all these people that, hey, you need a parking lot? We'll build you a parking lot. We want to serve the Lord till the day we die. We're going to use our energy. We're going to be fully alive. And let me just tell you, I know that some are missing life because they're not getting in it. They're not fully going after and savoring each day. I also know those are some that are missing life because they're just doing way too much. And they're going the other route, and they're missing it too. I enjoy my journey groups on Wednesday evenings, and one of the reasons I really enjoy it is because it just slows me down. Getting together with a few people, talk about the Word, praying for each other, having some food and fellowship with each other. I guess we have about 10 adults that are hosting small groups throughout our church during the week. And I read an article this week about how deep relationships may be the number one stress reliever that is affecting our health so much. So actually getting together just with a group of people in an informal way to talk about life is one of the number one things you can do to de-stress. Relationships are that important. We were made for community, and saying that you're committed to that is saying how important you know that it is. It's important to slow down and to live life with some people. I got just a message, an email that someone sent me. This is from a young teenage gal that's dying of cancer, who doesn't have long to live, and she wrote this little write-up called Slow Dance. Have you ever watched kids on a merry-go-round or listened to the rain slapping on the ground? Ever followed a butterfly's erratic flight or gazed at the sun into the fading night? You better slow down. Don't dance so fast. Time is short. The music won't last. Do you run through each day on the fly? When you ask, how are you? Do you ever hear the reply? When the day is done, do you lie in your bed with the next 100 chores running through your head? You better slow down. Don't dance so fast. Time is short. The music won't last. Ever told your child we'll do it tomorrow, and in your haste not see his sorrow? Ever lost touch, let a good friendship die because you never had time to call and say hi? You'd better slow down. Don't dance so fast. Time is short. The music won't last. When you run so fast to get somewhere, you miss half the fun of getting there. When you worry and hurry through your day, it's like an unopened gift thrown away. Life is not a race. Do take it slower. Hear the music before the song is over. I saw somebody else that put an article, I think, on Facebook that talked about they went to assisted living communities and homes and asked these people what they regretted most in their lives that they'd lived so far. And they didn't share what they didn't share what they got to do. They shared what they didn't do. They spent their time on things not quite as important, and they missed much of what they know is now important. That's interesting, to talk to some of our oldest members in society and say, hey, what would you do again? And it's not the things, it's not the things that I was mad at I got to do. It's frustrated over the things I didn't do. The risks I didn't take, the relationships I didn't pour more time into, the people's homes I didn't spend time with, people I didn't go visit and see, the relationships I didn't pour more of myself into. Whatever they did in their lifetime will soon be long gone. They're no longer playing a part in anything on this earth. So I think Solomon would tell us, frankly, life's a gift. Live it. Solomon finally moves on here to God's outlook again on living this life. I think God is the great killjoy. Much of our society frequently pictures him sitting together in this boring church building, trying to look and act as good as you possibly can be. And I look at some of the things Solomon says, it gives me a different picture of God, a different perspective, and I hope it does with you too. So verse 7 through 10 are critically important verses, I think, to the points we're making this morning. Starts off with, so go ahead. So go ahead. Eat your food with joy and drink your wine with a happy heart, for God approves of this. Wear fine clothes, splash a little of cologne, live happily with the woman you love through all the meaningless days of life that God has given you under the sun. The wife God gives you is your reward for all your earthly toil. Whatever you do, do well, for when you go to the grave, there will be no work or planning or knowledge or wisdom. I guess I could ask you right off, is the God that you serve and believe in, is he a go-ahead type God? Or is he more the God that sort of has an eternal or cosmic taser waiting for you to step out in any way? And he goes, zzz, ha ha. Told you to go ahead, but psych, zzz, ha ha. Is that the kind of God that you serve? Instead of saying, eat your food with joy and drink your wine with a happy heart, for God approves this. What kind of God do you serve? What kind of God do you think is out there that we believe in, that we've entrusted our lives to? I'd say, frankly, when it comes to food and there's certainly things that we abuse. There's certainly things I wish America had a different relationship with, and one of those things is alcohol. Another one of those is food. Sometimes we are gluttonous. Sometimes we eat more than we should. Sometimes we eat the wrong things with no kind of substance to them, and we eat all kinds of junk and things, and sometimes we drink way too much. Because I think of all the counseling I've done, I think because of some of my own grandparents and things, I kind of have maybe a distorted look on a little bit of alcohol, where I'm probably come down on it a little bit more than, that even God would. But I think God said, hey, if it's a problem, don't do it. If this is an issue you have, stay away. With my kids, I try and be a green light dad. Sometimes I have to be a red light dad. My kids have asked me, Dad, can we stay up a half hour longer to watch this show with you? Teeth are brushed and my homework's done. I say, man, sure. Dad, can we have some snacks out of the pantry? Yes. Just eat your dinner. Keep me out of trouble with your mom. Dad, can we sleep out in the trailer or have a slumber party, a bunch of kids over at our house, play night games? Yeah. Sometimes it's a red light. Dad, can I go to a friend's house with a bunch of kids and their parents are not home? No. Dad, can I go to the store late at night and get something to eat? No. Never going to happen. So there's some things just like our Lord. So there's things that are going to be good and bless you, and I want to say yes whenever I can because I want our relationship to be great. I want us to know that I'm a God of abundance life, and maybe it's why God, He has one tree in the entire garden that they're not supposed to eat of, but there's how many other trees and vegetation and things, and He's a God with largely green lights, and go ahead. And we've added to His rules and laws and come down on people, and people have abused the few instructions the Lord's given people. But He says, eat your food and drink your wine with a happy heart. I re-walked through some of the Bible this week, noticing how many times Jesus went to feasts, how many times Jesus was at a party or a wedding, how important it was for Him to sit down and eat and drink together with His followers. I read some of the parables, about the wedding feasts. I read some of the prodigal son parable where the son comes home and immediately they're so excited the son's home. They slaughter the fattened calf and they begin drinking and enjoying each other's company. And then evangelistic wise, Jesus says, go out in the highways and the byways and invite them into my banqueting table and we're going to have a feast together. And in Revelation, there's going to be a great banquet that's being prepared for the saints. There's always food. Brock would love this if he was here. He's talking about the food and getting out there and enjoying company and eating together and drinking together. I think we may too lightly take what it means to dine together. I've shared with you how kids who eat a meal with their parents just once a day are most likely to do better in school, less likely to have emotional problems. They're more likely to be emotional stable, and they're less likely to get involved in high-risk behavior. And you think, well, is that the ingredients of the food? Is something magical about the food and desserts people are having? And I think it's breaking bread together. I think it's that coming together, that family fellowship. And it's wear fine clothes and splash on cologne. And that's basically saying we are going out. We are going out on the town. I still remember special times eating with my family growing up, and we had enough money to go out on Sundays after church. It became a tradition, a coming together. Sundays after church, it was like an extension of the worship service, where we might talk about what was preached about or what was taught in classes, but it was a good time of fellowship, a fitting period of saying, wow, we're together as a family, and we'd just catch up and just enjoy each other. Now, we could get some self-righteous people out there who say, well, fine clothes, what's that about? You should be selling those clothes and giving it to the poor, and what's that about? I say, if you're giving to the Lord, what's the Lord's, and you're giving to Caesar's, what's Caesar's, and you're spending money that you have and not what you don't have, then enjoy. There's a time for this, just to enjoy, just to fellowship, just to draw close. In the Bible, Martha comes to Jesus. She's so self-righteous. It's like, Jesus, I am serving and I'm cleaning up and I'm taking care of this. I'm getting everything ready. And Mary is just, my sister's just sitting at your feet doing nothing. I mean, how many of us have been there? I know probably all of us have been there. It's like, we're just doing all the work, carrying all the load. And Jesus' response to her is, Martha, you're concerned about so much. Mary has chose what is better. Just sitting, sometimes you just need to sit at the foot of God. It's important to worship together. It's important to come to church. It's important to learn more things about Christ. It's important to be reminded of things you already know, but haven't been practicing or living. It's like, oh, that is important. I need to take time for that. In verse 9, when Solomon says, live happily with the woman you love through all the meaningless days of life that God has given you under the sun. The wife God gives you is your reward for all your earthly toil. He's not saying your wife is the cause of all your earthly toil. I have some couples that act like their mate, that's like, I got to protect the institution of marriage. We got to stay together. Even though I dislike you and you're so hard on me and cantankerous, I got to stay together because it's the right thing to do. You're my work. That's not the way God ever intended marriage to be. It was supposed to be a blessing. It was supposed to be a gift. It was something to a reward for the earthly toil. Whatever you do, do well, for when you go to the grave, there will be no work or planning, knowledge, or wisdom. I read a study from Princeton University this last week. Something truly disturbing that it's not talked about or said much. Middle-aged white Americans are dying at a faster rate since 1999 through 2013. It's been going up 1% every year, the equivalent of over 500,000 additional deaths to middle-aged white people, or about 40 times the number of dead in West Africa's Ebola epidemic that got very noticed. What's killing these Americans is even more disturbing. Concludes the article on The Atlantic, it's suicide, alcohol, and drug poisonings. As manufacturing and construction jobs have evaporated and wages have stagnated, blue-collar workers have turned to alcohol and opioids to numb their misery. To put it bluntly, middle-aged white Americans are dying of despair. These men expected to lead better lives than their parents. As the New York Times article noted, we're looking at people who were raised to believe in the American dream and are coping badly with its failure to come true. When I read that, it's somewhat disturbing to me. I mean, it's disturbing that people are dying at a higher rate and things, but there's something that's just more disturbing than that, is that have we forgotten how to enjoy life? Has it really become about working to accomplish a life of things? Is that why we're all doing our jobs? Is that what's really most important to us? That's where it's affected, our conscience is affecting our health? If that's the case, if this is true, then all the more reasons to, hey, enjoy your wife. Enjoy your husband. Enjoy your kids. Enjoy the relationships that God has blessed you. See them as blessings. Take every day not for granted that you get to live with these people, that you get to love on them, that you get to be loved by them. It says enjoy them in these meaningless days. What's that mean? Why does it say the meaningless days? Well, what's that? You know, when you pass, if you were to pass right now, the things you've done the last few months and the things you're going to do in the next few months, checking all your emails, making your calls, making your sales, making your management decisions, making money, from taking out the trash, doing the dishes, to keeping up with the laundry. When you pass, those things will continue to get done just by somebody else. And all those emails and sales you're doing and things you're doing for a company become fairly meaningless as far as you're concerned and where you are then. But most likely your spouse will miss you. Most likely there will be an impact there. So go out to dinner with her tonight. Start planning the date nights again. Put some bubbles in the bathtub again. Walk along the river together. Water the grass on your side of the fence so the other side of the fence doesn't start looking greener. Because this is a blessing, your lot in life that God has given you for your brief and meaningless time on this earth. And since a lot of you have an above the sun type perspective to see these things, I watch my parents in the later season of their lives. They're in the winter of their lives, and they get cranky with each other sometimes. I watch my dad smile as my mom gets frustrated with him. I begin to think of all the ways I will enjoy pushing Kelly's buttons in my old age. Give her things to fuss about up until the point I'm gone. And to me, that's something beautiful. Growing old together and watching old people fuss about the most meaningless little things and actually enjoying it, because that's the highlights of the day sometimes. And really leads to the next verse fairly well. Whatever you do, do well. So I'm going to push Kelly's buttons. I want to be good at it. But seriously, what that means is if you got to put in 8 hours of work, be fully there. Rather than being the complaining employee that's just brutal for all the other employees to be around, put your time in. But also, don't come home to your family and they just get the leftovers because you're completely spent. You've given more time than you were supposed to at your place of employment. They weren't even asking for that. You're giving more hours because you just are over the top, and you come home and your family really feels like they just got the leftovers of what you had left to give. So the point really here, the third point I wanted to get across, is live with passion at home and at work, both places. Be where you're at. When you're at home, don't bring home all the stresses and all this just luggage of stuff and frustrations and calls to make to everybody and anybody that you're still in your work day, really. And when you go to work, give your employer everything you've got for that time period. The invitation is to fill our buckets with Christ, to let Christ be the center of our bucket. And so our bucket list just simply is a reflection of that and the way we live. And it glorifies God when we live within the things that are most important to Him. Solomon is just pointing out things that he's seeing, that God has given him a supernatural earthly wisdom to point out to us. And so one of the most important things, the most important thing, is to receive Christ in your life as your Lord and personal Savior. He loves you. He desires to have a personal relationship with you. And your life can be centered and grounded when He's at the center of your life. And so the invitation is for you to receive Him today and to live your life for Him in an above-the-sun type wisdom that only He can give. Would you stand with us during this invitation? I'm just going to be in the back, just down in the connection room. Come see me if you'd just like to talk about this, what we're talking about this morning, the study.